Hello, everyone. Wednesday night, and it's Masters Muscle time. As always, I am joined by my partner in crime, Vinnie Galanti, and of course, the other person you may recognize, no stranger to the show, friend of ours, hopefully friend of yours, Mr. Scott Appelbaum. How we doing, guys?
Doing great. Doing great.
Doing awesome. How's everybody doing?
So, guys, we thought it would be great. A lot of people talk about doing a show, doing a contest, doing a show. We thought it'd be great to get everybody together, kind of give everybody the lay of the land, the ABCs to actually have a successful prep, what to do, what not to do. But let's throw the very first question out. When people are thinking about a show, maybe what's the very first thing they should do?
You want to answer that, Pat? You want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I mean, what do you mean the first thing they should do? When I talk to somebody who comes over to me and said, I'd like, I hear you're a really good coach. They interview me and they go, I'd like to do a show in like 16 weeks. And the first thing I look at them, I say, listen, let's take a look at, you're with me. Let's take a look at you. And you have to be ready to prep, meaning you just can't decide I want to compete in 16 weeks. Your body has to be ready to prep, meaning that it's going to take that 16 weeks to get you where you want to go. If you're over that, it's going to be more than 16 weeks, and that's where the first mistake happens. People think they're going to get ready in 16 weeks when they're not ready to actually prep.
That's true.
You agree, Vinny?
Oh, yeah. The other thing, too, is I like, on a personal note, I like to approach a contest at 20 weeks out because I like to approach it where it's I'm in a transition period that's mentally preparing me and physically preparing me, that when I do approach 16 to 12 weeks out, I'm ready to pull the switch and I'm ready to train for a show. But what I tell a lot of people is when you're getting ready, when you're thinking about getting ready, you have to have an honest opinion of yourself. You have to execute all the poses and look at them. And if your lat spread from the back is really good, but your lat spread from the front is very weak, well, then you need to have the mindset of going into the gym to improve the front part of your lats. If the sweep on your quads are weak and your teardrops are really prominent, we got to balance that out. And you got to go in with the mindset of, I got to train a certain way, not just keep doing the same things you've been doing, because then you're just going to have a ripped up version of the same physique. Do you agree?
Oh, yeah. That's so funny you say that. It's because I met with a new client today, and before I actually put her training split together, I said, I really need really, really good pictures because I need to see your structure, because I just don't put a split together just, on a whim. Looking at her physique, that's where it starts. And then based on where her strengths and weaknesses are, that's how I create the training split. So it's so fun. And that's what I did today. And and I explained to her why I did what I did.
You said a word that really strikes with me, is the word create. And I think a lot of people don't go into the gym thinking creating anything. They just go into the gym and lift weights. And I think the word create really goes pretty far with what we're talking about today. You have to create something first. Forget dieting, forget anything else yet. You have to come up with a game plan to fix your physique as best as you possibly can, and then put together a formula to get ripped or to get big. I mean, because off season comes first, or afterwards, however you look at it.
And speaking about training, everybody thinks, a training program is no big deal and anybody could write one for me, and that's not the case, not at all.
No.
Individualization, I think, is something that's been lost, over the last decade. And when you create a training split for somebody, it needs to be 100% individualized.
Absolutely.
So do you think maybe the first step really is looking at the calendar, looking at a show you want to do, and then going all the way backtracking and then putting the plan in place, or put the plan in place first and then start looking at the schedule?
Well, I think, like what Scott said in his opening remarks, a lot of people think like 16 weeks is going to be an ideal time. You're not giving yourself a true, how I want to say, you're not really being honest with yourself in having the best prep. So I think you should start looking at something at like 6 months out, and then chip away until you're 16 weeks out, and then chip away until you're 10 weeks out, and then so on and so on. I think that giving yourself, like if you came to Scott or myself at 16 weeks out and you've already done the homework where you've been honest with yourself, you've had a great off season, you've been training really hard, you've been focusing on weak body parts, that's a different story. But if you're coming to us cold turkey and saying, I want to compete in 16 weeks, and we say to you, hey, instead of thinking of a show in July, maybe you should think of one in November. And then they get discouraged and go to another coach who will give them what they want. And then they come up short in their goals at the show. And that happens to me quite often. I don't know if that happens to you, Scott.
Oh yeah, of course. They want, you're not telling what they want to hear. That's the problem,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And like people that I'm sure you agree, people that I work with already who I've gotten ready for shows, in the off season, I'm like, well, do not let your body get, 10% above your body weight. So if someone's competing at 180, you shouldn't be more than 18 pounds heavier in the off season, because coming down is going to be that much harder and it take that much longer. And the goal is, especially when you're working with somebody who's competed maybe once or twice, the goal is each time to get you even leaner than you were.
I always say that. I always say, look at what you look like at 8 weeks out from your last show. You should look like that at 12 weeks out the next time.
Yes.
And just keep getting better and better.
Because, working with somebody coming down the first time is the hardest. And not letting yourself go above that 10% allows your body to create a new set point where it's comfortable. And then you actually put on muscle during that off season. And then coming down, you're going to get even leaner and be even larger. So, there really isn't, I hate to use the word off season. You know what I mean? Because it's not off.
Oh, absolutely. I think people use that word loosely,
Yeah.
So for somebody that's doing their very first show that really doesn't know anything and they're looking for a coach, okay, what do you suggest they already do homework wise? I mean, because Scott, you don't want somebody coming to you with a complete blank slate, or do you? Are you open, or Vinnie, are you open to somebody that really knows nothing,
Absolutely.
or do you want somebody to come with something to the table, some substance to the table? Does that make sense?
Well, so I tell this to people all the time. Scott and I grew. I didn't say this, that I didn't say Scott and I, but Scott and I, we have grown up in an era where we did not have social media. Okay, we had a couple of magazines. I met Scott through NASM and Apex, and he was more on the book side of it, and I was coming from the street smart side of training, and that's why I always gravitated to talk to Scott, because he always knew more than me. And we didn't have much information back then. We learned from other people's mistakes in the gyms we trained in. And today it's very confusing on who you're learning from, because just because somebody has 80,000 likes and they look like they've been only training a year, but they have great bullshit to sell on Instagram. And that's the truth. No, really, that's just the truth. Yeah. You have to understand that every coach is going to bash the next coach because they got to sell something unique. And really, Scott and I can tell you, it's really simple. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of dedication. It's a lot of discipline. But in the end, it's really simple getting in shape for a contest. You just have to pick a coach who's going to be truthful with you. Because like when somebody approaches me and they're already seasoned, I see what they're doing already, and what are we going to do to make what you've already done better? And I kind of try to say, okay, let's start out way ahead of time and do your thing, and let me manipulate it as we go. Because then they're comfortable. I'm tweaking what I think should be tweaked, and I'm not giving them false hope or bullshitting them into saying my way is the only way to do it. Do you agree with that, Scott? And it's
Yeah, I do. But it's funny when he said it's simple. I thought about this before we're going to get on. The laws of human physiology apply to every individual. Okay.
Right.
To what extent we apply them depends on what the person's goals are, whether it's just to lose body fat or to compete. You have to apply them to a much stronger extent. Listen. I mean, let's break it to its essence. Energy, which you take in, cannot be destroyed. You either use it or you store it. That's it. Period.
Right.
You store it.
But what I'm saying too is, you might have somebody who, like, different metabolisms. I think that's what you're saying, right? But at the same time, I mean it being simple, like, just simply follow what we tell you to do.
Oh yeah.
There's no science. There's a science, but then there's nothing. But when you start to get like too technical and try to make it so complicated, that's when it doesn't work.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I've experienced this quite often, or I've heard people say, this program's not working, and they're only in it 3 weeks. I know for myself, I don't start to look any different, literally any different, until I start to reach the 5th into the 6th week mark. And then all of a sudden, my metabolism starts kicking in. It did that when I was 25, 35, 45, and now I'm in my mid-50s. I'm going to be 57 in April. And my metabolism reacts the same way about anywhere between the end of 5 weeks into the beginning of 7 weeks. In that period, people don't give it enough time for the program to actually work. And they change the program once they start panicking. And people have to realize not to panic.
And the other thing, again, you've been doing this for a long time. So that the 5 to 6 week mark, that's when things start to roll. And what a person will do, which is, a detriment to them, is that they'll say, like I said, it's not working, and they change the person they're working with, which is because that coach is actually learning their body. So now you're actually starting again from scratch with somebody else.
Yep. I see that happening all the time.
So Scott, what is your personal protocol before you actually make some modifications? Like Vinny's saying 5 to 6 weeks, maybe. Do you have a certain time frame for you?
That's how he feels his body starts to change,
Yeah.
That's me personally.
Yes.
Okay.
It depends. Like I'm working with I have 3 guys going to a show right now, and I manipulate. My one client was burnt out, working 3 jobs, training, and he's a workhorse, this guy. And when he feels he doesn't give it enough, he feels so guilty, he'll do more. He's a workhorse. I don't have to worry about him slacking off. I looked at him, and I don't know, a less experienced coach might have looked at him and go, you're cheating on the diet and you're getting fat. He wasn't getting fat. He was getting tired, and his body was not looking good anymore. It was just worn down. So what I did was I said, okay, let's take off from the gym completely for 4 days. Don't touch a weight. Don't do cardio. We need to reset the button here. And I didn't know, should I feed him? Should I give him a cheat meal? Or should I feed him clean food? I just decided, let me just go with very little carbs since we weren't training. And after the 5th day, he started getting, oddly enough, tighter and kind of like more crispier. And he came back alive. And he was asking me, hey, could we go the next 5 weeks with very low carbs? I'm like, no, we got to feed you again now. We got over that hurdle. Now we got to face the next 5 weeks. So people don't understand that. They'll look at something and say, oh, that worked. That's going to get me ready for a show.
It was the rest that he actually needed.
Yes.
And the reason Vinny didn't give him carbohydrates because he wasn't expending a huge amount of energy, but he still needed some good protein and fat, period.
Yep, that was it. But some competitors will look at that and go, oh, that's the key. Now I'm going to ride that into the show. And when I said to him, no, we're going to start eating up a little bit, he looked so disappointed. I'd never seen a competitor get disappointed when I said, you need to eat now.
So Scott, when you bring on a new client, you give them a program or a protocol, whatever term you use. How long do you keep it on it before you start making modifications?
All right. First thing, when I start working with somebody, the first thing I need is blood work.
Okay.
That's me.
Without blood, there's so many coaches out there that don't require it. And I do not, maybe because they're afraid of it. They haven't read blood work. They don't have any blood work. It's vital. It's a huge ingredient. So based on the blood work that I get, and then, I have an intake huge questionnaire, I set the protocol up for them. Their food, their cardio, their supplementation, and their training. And that's day one. That's where we start. And I do not change anything unless the body stops changing.
Yep. Now, Scott, what is your number one reason for asking them for blood work?
Well, because I need to see what's going on. Look, so I'm concerned about their health as well, as what we all should be. How the kidneys are functioning, how their liver's functioning. That's a complete metabolic. Their lipid panel, what their cholesterol is. Okay. Also hormones, thyroid, testosterone, cortisol, estrogen. I mean, all these things play a role. Your blood sugar. What's your resting blood sugar? What's your fasted insulin? What's your A1C, which is your blood sugar, your fasted blood sugar over 3 months. All those things have a huge effect on what I may do to start things off.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about foods. How do people analyze maybe what the best foods are for themselves? Because again, what works for you might not work for me, and so forth.
I'll let you take that, Scott.
What I want to do is, look, we're going to create a deficit, okay? But I want to create the least amount of hunger as possible. So I want to create the right percentage of protein, carbs, and fats per meal, so you get from one meal to the other without getting tired, without getting hungry, getting you the best gas mileage meal to meal.
I agree with that 100%. So now there's also another level to look at this. Like you go to the extent of how we talked in the past, like looking for organic, and you could break that down like a bunch of different ways. But then there's guys and women competitors who don't understand that and will just get whatever's at the grocery store. How do you feel about that?
There's budgetary issues that occur because we're going to talk about cost, but there are things that if you don't get them either organic that affect the gut adversely, and that's going to affect your ability to change your body.
Yeah.
Anything that's going to cause inflammation, it will prevent you. It can prevent you from losing body fat.
So,
and those things can also affect, your thyroid. There's a cascade of effects.
All right. So I come to you and my blood work is pretty decent. Really nothing alarming. And I got 4 kids. I got a wife, mortgage, 3 car payments.
Yeah.
I'm like, Scott, I want to do this show, but I can't go the organic route. It's too expensive right now. Is there anything you recommend to say, well, all right, I want you to get these supplements to help your gut health if you're not going to go the route?
Unless they have I don't know if they have a problem with that gut currently, but again, for example, if, let's use a fruit, I will have them give them fruits that don't necessarily have to be organic. Like, for example, if someone's got any berry needs to be organic because they're sprayed so much with herbicides and pesticides. So I will tend to stay away from those,
right.
If they can't go organic,
No, good point. Because there's a lot of people out there that just can't afford what we do. And unfortunately now at our age, we can afford it and it's not a problem. I know young guys that are getting ready for a show that just don't even understand that world. And it's so like confusing to them. Like, look, dude, I just want to, tell me how much grilled chicken I should eat and how much rice I should eat. And they combat me a little bit with trying to get them to go to the next step. So I sometimes don't even like challenge them on it.
Yeah. I mean, with rice, I try to have everybody have organic rice because rice are made in paddies, and there's runoffs from streams and rivers that actually, there's heavy metals that actually, are in the rice. And if you're eating rice every day, you're just pounding yourself with it. So I think it's more important when someone's going to eat the same foods throughout a prep that they are clean because you're eating them every single day.
Well, I completely agree with you. Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's just sometimes, we get those clients that do we know they're following our advice 100%? It goes down to that too. Because sometimes they'll just lie to us.
Yes.
Here's a weird question. So how does someone know that they have an allergy or an inflammation versus maybe they just ate too much?
Well, it's a different feeling. And you know what? When I start working with somebody, usually the first week or two, they'll lose a lot more body weight because they're not losing a huge amount of body fat, which is losing water and inflammation, you know?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Scott, you mentioned quickly blood work earlier. How often do you want people to do blood work? Every 6 months, or what do you recommend?
No, every 3. And sometimes as we get closer to the show, I may ask for it again.
Okay. Do you ask for it more for someone that might be on some anabolics versus someone that's not, or is it regardless?
If someone's taking performance enhancing drugs, I'm gonna want to see it, more often.
Okay. Okay. And what do you guys think are the general costs for a good prep? Or let's take the food and things along those lines.
I have a certain way of looking at this. A lot of people will say, "Hey, I just took second in a show and I'm qualified for the nationals," but the show is weak and their physique is weak and they're not ready for the nationals. And a lot of times, and now I've seen competitors say they're going to go travel to a show. The prep itself, the food itself, is expensive. Now you're going to hop on an airplane, 4 nights in a hotel, and your physique is not ready to not even come in the top 15 at the NPC Nationals. And you go and say, "I just want to go for the experience." Okay, here's the experience. You're going to be in the last call out. You're going to look at really good guys being compared to each other. I should say in the first call out, you're going to see amazing competitors being compared to each other. Then you're going to see really good competitors in the second call out. And then you're going to see good competitors in the third call out. And then it's you who don't belong there. Spend your money wisely. Use local shows as a learning tool for your physique on what works for you, how you should get in shape for a show. In between shows, you should be focusing on creating a better version of yourself every single time you compete. Stop thinking about spending and living the dream of, "Hey, I'm going on an airplane," and posting it on Instagram and being cool. That's not smart. That's not smart way of spending your money. The prep itself is expensive, as I said, and then what Scott's saying, the way we go about this is it's a lifestyle. So your prep should be realistic. It shouldn't be so blown out of the water that when it's all said and done, you're $5,000 in a hole. You shouldn't be doing that, because that happens a lot.
Yes,
I agree, and I'll tell you, and that's been, I guess, a problem over the last several years because every single show is a national qualifier. Years ago, it wasn't like that.
That's right. That's right.
In Canada, they have a nice tier system. You know what I mean? Where there's different levels of shows. Here, every show here in Florida is a national qualifier.
I think every show everywhere is a national qualifier.
Yeah, and so there's not like, okay, it's a local show, regional, state, regional. It doesn't go like that anymore.
I don't think that would fly today. I think people are so full of themselves and arrogant that they think they belong on the highest level right off the bat, because of the invention of social media.
And everybody wants immediate gratification right now.
Absolutely. Nobody has the time. I mean, you look back in the day, you get guys like he passed away today, Johnny Morant, God rest his soul, God bless him. He was a freak, right? And Johnny Morant back in the day, I think, trained for 15 years before he ever stepped on stage and won the jersey, and then went to the North America. Guys at Diamond Gym would train 10, 15 years before they even enter a local contest. Like that you don't see that today. And
we have to be the bad guys and say, back up. Let's build a foundation first before you think about competing. Because they've maybe been in the gym 6 months. I'm like, I'm 60 years old. I've been doing this since I was 13. And again, it took me several decades until I had 60 to get my pro card. And you're talking about going to a pro qualifier and winning a class in a very local show. You're not ready.
Yeah, no, I see that all day long.
So what do you guys suggest, and what would be obviously the right route? How many shows should someone really do and place before they go to the USA's, the Nationals, the Juniors? I know, Vin, because you were around the horn for quite a while.
Well, it took me 16 years to turn pro. But listen, I was 16 years old when I first went into my first gym. And that was I think November of 1983. And I stepped on stage in February of 84. I was talked into it by the guys in the gym. They said I had a good foundation. And at the time, they had 3 age groups, 13 to 16, 17 to 18, and then 19-year-olds.
Wow.
And so it was broken down in 3 groups. And I thought, well, I was the top of the age group at 16. I went in it. I took 3rd out of 3. But I wasn't thinking I'm going to turn pro either. I didn't think I was going to go and win the Mr. New Jersey a couple of weeks later either. I didn't step on stage again until a couple of years later. And then I wound up winning the Teen Jersey Cup. I took my class in the Teen Jersey. I took 2nd in the Teen USA. And this is all closer to being 19. So I understood and respected what you need to do in the gym. I learned from good people. I learned from, John Natashak, Chuck Waldron. These are guys. John Natashak won the Nationals and the Universe back in 84. And Chuck Waldron was in the AAU, and he won I believe, the Mr. America and Mr. World or Mr. Universe. And I learned just how to respect what you need to do in the gym and build a foundation and train with. Listen, I was never a strong guy. I was never benching 315 or squatting 405. That came later. And I put that work in, and wasn't until 1993, 10 years later, that I won the middleweight class at the USA Championships. And then it just escalated from there. And it was 16 years before I got a pro card. I competed in a very difficult era.
Well, and if you took the middleweight in the USA right now, you do get a pro card. But when he competed, you did not.
No. One of the highlights,
they don't want to pay their dues. That's the problem.
Yeah, one of the highlights for me was in the overall at the 93 USA, they pulled Chris Cormier and myself to the center, and we hit a few poses. And, everyone was like, "You're going to win." I'm like, "No, Chris Cormier's not. He's going to win." But yeah, Chris ended up winning, and he had an amazing career. But yeah, I just see, and I've said this before, and people think this is a joke when I say it. There's more focus on decorating the house than building the house. And the damn house hasn't even been built yet. The studs aren't even up yet.
Great analogy. That's a great analogy.
And no one's like, what? Like, when did your brain acknowledge the fact that you're on your fucking knee doing a lat pull down? Excuse my French, but like, does that make a difference? If you're on your knee, your lat becomes bigger. Like, does that, like, I don't, the weird stuff that I see. Nobody's barbell rowing, nobody's T-bar rowing, nobody's doing deadlifts, partial deadlifts, rack deads, squats, partial squats, deep squats, heavy leg presses, heavy hack squats. I don't see that. I don't see it happening anymore. I see a lot of people training around those exercises now that we have the pendulum. They're thinking the pendulum is going to put the mass. It's not going to. It's not going to do shit for your physique. The squat is going to build a thick back, thick arms, thick shoulders, thick legs. It's the king of all exercises. And I get kids rolling their eyes at me today like, "You don't know what you're talking about." I'm like, okay, whatever.
Well, the other thing I see is people do not know what failure is. They think they do, but they don't.
No.
Do you guys
And they don't progress. They don't progress, meaning they don't say, "Oh, I track my workouts every day, and I know where I have been, so I know where I'm going." and I want to try to progress each workout. Meaning, if I can increase a rep or go up, a little bit in weight, they don't think like that,
No, not at all. Sometimes I don't know what they're thinking, and I don't mean to be rude or just insulting, but it's just I don't see. There's not much. It's just going into the gym and attacking a lat pull down for 25 minutes instead of trying to see what they can barbell row. And if they do a barbell row, they're yanking the weight. There's no finesse today. The art of training, the art of knowing how to spot, it's completely gone.
Right.
I look at the biggest dude in the gym and I'm like, yeah, no, I don't trust him. He doesn't know what he's doing. Just because he's big and built doesn't mean anything. Sometimes I go grab a girl and have her spot me because they kind of grasp it a lot better than the guys. Sean, you're laughing, but it's true.
I know. I believe you, though. I know.
I see girls in the gym training way harder than dudes today. Like I see like it's a weird thing going on today where I see couples, boyfriend and girlfriends, training. The guys are kind of like on the side doing their little thing, and the girls are fucking kicking ass, training balls out, and the guys are like doing some curls or doing a band work. Like, what are you doing? And the girls train hard. Girls train way harder today.
It was funny, and you may even there's a woman who my training partner wasn't around for legs last week, and I did legs with this girl that I met at the gym. She's from New Jersey, trained at Diamond Gym, took fourth in the Junior USA in I think 2001.
Okay.
And we did legs, and I got to tell you, she impressed me. She really, really did. She trained like an animal,
Do you know her name?
Yeah, Mara Snyder.
Who?
Mara, Mara Snyder. She's living down here in Florida.
Okay.
Do you think to a point that in today's society that people are fast tracking themselves because it's, how do I say this nicely? It's easier to get a pro card where every show you've got 50 pro card winners versus USA's you had one, the Nationals you had 6, 7, 8. Where you know what I mean?
Okay, so take that theory. It's easy to get a pro card, as you say, because there's more opportunity, right? And maybe because I'm coming from my mindset, my era of thinking, if I train 10% harder and diet at 10% harder than what I'm doing, I'm going to kick everyone's ass. I'm going to go and destroy everybody at the show then. People put so little effort into it because there's so little effort. Like, you don't need to put effort today because it's easy to get second place today and get a pro card. I mean, the Junior USA now gives out, I think, top 5 in the pro cards. I won that and I didn't get a pro card. I won the Junior USA. I didn't get a pro card. I won the USA. Didn't get a pro card. I'm like, oh my God, I scratched my head and I'm like, you guys have it so easy and you train so soft. You don't give it effort. And let me tell you, if I never earned my pro card and I was thinking of competing today, I would feel sorry for guys who were going into the East Coast of the Eastern USA. I would destroy them. I would make them look stupid because I would bring in condition and detail that they'd have no idea how that happened. I would suffer because these kids don't, these guys.
That's the word. That's the word. Sean, people, they think they're suffering just like they think they're going to failure. They don't suffer. Just when you think you're suffering, that's when the suffering starts.
Yep. Yeah. I said to a kid, so last year, this kid, he's a really nice kid. I like him a lot. I'm not going to mention his name because somebody's probably watching it and go back and tell him and he'll cry. He ended up taking 3rd place in the Eastern USA. A guy from South Jersey is his coach. And this kid was ready. He was ready to rock this contest. And another guy in my gym was a little nervous about him. And I said, don't be nervous. You're cut from a different cloth. You're hardcore, you're old school, and you're only 30 years old. He is going to mess up this week. He's going to listen to his coach. They're going to refeed him. They're going to do something stupid to see how they could push the food and they're not going to eat anything clean. They're going to go and I guarantee you they're going to go to a fast food restaurant and see how that works. Well, exactly how it played out. The kid who was nervous ends up winning, and the other kid ended up in third. And he said to me, what do you think I need to work on? I said, it's kind of silly that you went and ate Chick-fil-A. And that's what he did. I don't know why you did that. You were ready for the show. You should just walked on stage. I said, and the second thing is, I go, you got your head up your ass. I go, you broke up with your girlfriend. You got a new girl. You're trying to bring your new girlfriend to your old girlfriend, trying to get drama going on. I go, leave the girl home. Go to another gym and train. Get your head on straight. And he was not expecting me to say stuff like that. Whereas Scott, that's how we talked to each other back in the day. Tell you the truth. Like, if you're not focused, go to another gym and get refocused. If your head's not on straight, get out of the environment you're in. Maybe I'm going off on a tangent here. Maybe it's not answering the same question the right way, but I just think people are focused on the wrong reasons. They're focused on having people see them in a gym training, set their tripods up, and, oh, I'm doing wonderful. But at the end of the day, you're not winning a contest, and you're bragging that you're a qualified athlete, and I'm not impressed.
Yeah. Vin, something you brought up here, you brought up cheat meal, and that was one of the questions, and that's for either one of you. What's the difference between a cheat meal and a refeed?
Scott, I'll let you go with that one. And then
I don't even like the phrase cheat meal. Okay. What we would call a refeed is if you're working with somebody and they starting to flatten out and they're starting to look bad and their energy's low, that's when a meal that's going to be clean but with really good food is going to rejuvenate that body because maybe they've done extra cardio they haven't even told you, or they cut back the calories and they're not telling you. You could tell that person's getting flat. And if their fat loss starts to stop, and because we're already eating in a deficit, and if they're doing it on their own by creating a bigger deficit by eating less food and doing more cardio, internal processes of the body slow down. They don't realize it, and they probably are slowing down everything they do all day long, whether it's walking, and a daily task. So the body is slowing you down. And so the body's conserving energy. It doesn't know that you want to change and look a certain way. It just knows it needs to survive.
Give us an example, Scott, of what you think, in your terms, a refeed meal would be.
Steak, potato, or rice, and a larger amount that they have. It's just good food,
So just a lot more. So if somebody's eating, let's say, a cup and a half of rice and 8 ounces of steak, what would you add on to that? Go up to 10 ounces, 12 ounces, 2 cups?
Yeah, I'll go to about 10 ounces and I give them 2 cups of rice and I add maybe some good fats to that meal.
Like avocado?
Yeah, avocado or some, olive oil on the rice, or even macadamia. What's great? Macadamia or nut oil on rice tastes, oh my God, incredible.
Oh, does it?
It's got a buttery flavor. That's why.
Now, for me to answer that question, I think, so many people advocate, they push, I need a refeed meal after leg day or back day, and that becomes part of their prep. And then that just causes an excuse to eat those foods. And when they go to eliminate them, it's almost like a crutch. They don't know what to do without them when prep actually starts. So they come up with the idea of, I need a refeed. A refeed sounds like a better choice than saying, I'm a failure and I'm going to go cheat on my diet right now. That's really the bottom line. You shouldn't be cheating on your diet. And if you're going to have a refeed meal, you got to go the way Scott's talking about. I in the past used to make, I would do a cheeseburger, a burger with avocado and red onion for a little flavor and just spruce it up a little bit and make it more tasty. Just go along that route. But a cheat meal is just an excuse. A refeed meal is an excuse to have a cheat meal. And if you're complaining that you didn't win a show or you didn't come into condition, is because you were too lazy to stay on your diet because you didn't suffer.
And the other thing is the only other reason to do that if the metabolism just starts racing.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean there are times
when you start seeing that, wow, this body's dropping too quick. So you hit him with a higher calorie meal, and then you actually raise the calories. So because they're coming down too fast.
A few years ago, back in 2015, my client Dave was just, his body was, racing, and I gave him some clean refeed meals, and it didn't do anything. It didn't make a dent, and I got kind of like a little nervous, and I'm like, all right, let's up that food. Let's up the next meal to a lot more food, and it didn't make a dent. So I was like, listen, leave the gym, go to Five Guys, have 2 double burgers, French fries, go get a couple slices of pizza in you, eat some ice cream. It was the only thing that could reset him, because he was just getting ultra shredded and starting to disappear. And then it like recalibrated and everything was fine after that. But
which speaks to what everybody needs to be treated as an individual, especially if you trust that they're following the plan.
Yes.
Everybody's going to be different. Certain people their body's just going to start to race, and no matter what you do, so you give them food that is it's just higher in calories. You know what I mean?
Have you ever been in a position where a client needed to go eat a dirty meal?
Yeah, because they can't eat enough clean food because they're full. Mm-hmm. That's the only reason, because you're giving them more calorie dense food that they can actually absorb versus how much rice can I give them, how much steak can I give them, and so you're going to give them something that's more calorie dense.
And I also think that has to do a lot of how the physiques have changed over the years a little bit, because we come from an era where everyone had small waistlines. And today you see bigger waistlines. And I think people eat way too much today. And I think that when they get into shape, then they have these refeed meals. Because I've seen it with guys in my gym have refeed meals and brag about it like it's a great thing. And they look at the fullness of the chest, the shoulders, and the arms, but then they don't see how the waistline starts to get a little bit bigger. I think it's a detriment. It's not helping.
Yeah.
So guys, I had another question come in. How do you know if a person is flat versus just not ready?
Flat versus not ready?
Well, not ready is, you could tell there's a lot more body fat there. There's a flatness that you see to the muscle. And again, if you're getting pictures or videos from this person, or you actually see them, you can tell by looking at them what's flat and what's fat.
Oh yeah. And also too, I think a lot of people, you have to understand that a lot of people who are not of our world and enter this and have family members who know nothing about the way we diet, the way we train, and they hear, oh, you're going to add sea salt, you're going to add salt to your diet. And their moms or aunts will say, no, our family runs high hypertension. You can't have salt. Cut the salt out. And that happens a lot. As I've had many people over the years listen to people who have no idea what they're talking about. And then I'm like, why are you so flat and holding so much water? Are you taking in sodium? They're like, oh, well, no. So you have to ask a lot of questions to get to an answer. Because if they're flat and holding water, they're definitely not taking in enough sodium.
Exactly.
Right? It's a no-brainer.
Sodium follows water, and actually it makes the muscle full,
And you become drier and harder.
Yes.
Yeah. It's crazy how we did it back in the day with distilled water and no salt and cutting water out.
Like my first show, I guess back in 1987, I cut my water on Thursday.
Yeah.
And then I didn't realize, I had the science background, but again, well, that's what I've been told to do. And you're adding carbohydrates, and now you're like, there's no water there.
Yep.
And it's just going to sit right in your gut.
Yeah. I remember the first time that I ever had this positive experience was when I did the 1997 Junior Nationals. I did not think I was going to compete. I was doing a photo shoot I was getting ready for a photo shoot for John Perillo, and he was in Cincinnati. And Lou Zwick of ESPN's American Sports Network, he flew me out to shoot with John Perillo. And I got out there. I was in really good shape. And John said, "Oh, are you staying for the week to compete in the junior nationals?" And I'm like, "No." He's like, "You're in shape." I said, "No, I'm not." I go, "I haven't even dieted for this, like as a contest." And he manipulated a few things and just added a little sea salt to my diet. And I ended up winning the junior nationals. And I'm like, I had sodium. I don't understand how that worked. So then the next person who taught that to me was Jason Arntz. And Jason was telling me all about how you need sodium. And that's like the secret nobody talks about. And you know, he knew about it before I ever knew about it. And Jason was one of the guys who tipped me off to that too.
Yeah.
Interesting. So we have a listener here asking a question. Training styles, high or low volume, reps, etc. Your beliefs, or does it matter per client?
You know, I think all types of training works. Okay.
Yep.
Whether it's, you know, high volume, low volume, you know, high reps, low reps. It's just being consistent, you know, and doing the work, you know, and actually activating a muscle. Because, like, you know, we were talking about back earlier. Most people don't even activate their lats when they do a pull down.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if you're using high reps or low reps or high volume or low volume. You're not activating the lats.
I think too, every training style works and every training style doesn't work. You have to get to a point where you almost exhaust that style and then switch over to something else. Because we're all victims of getting to a point where, man, I need to change my whole program up a little bit. I've done that many times. But I have found for me that whether I'm going, and Scott, you just, you hit the nail on the head. Whether you're training with heavyweight, high reps, lightweight, whatever you want to call it, if you're not stimulating the muscle, you're not doing anything productive in the gym. If it's all just so heavy that it's in your tendons and ligaments, you're not doing anything for the muscle. So whether your mindset is I got to go heavy, or your mindset is I want to get a pump, you need to feel the muscle contracting. And that's when you're on the right track. And then sometimes, I don't know, for me, like I find like around 6 to 8 weeks, I start to change workouts a little bit. Like Scott and I just talked this week on my own recovery, as now I'm dealing with Epstein-Barr and approaching 57, pushing myself here. I was like, Scott, this is the direction I want to go. I'm feeling better with this training style where it's basically almost a push-pull legs every other day kind of workout. And it's like, Ben, you know, it's all about what works for you. You got to find out what works for you. And even though I know, I bounced it off of Scott. So when you're trying to figure out what works for you, you got to talk to a lot of people, and you come to find out that everybody has their own style of training, and they're caught up in a rut. They don't get anything out of it anymore. And common sense would say, change it. Just change your workout around. Do a completely different workout. Change the style. Maybe do some drop sets. Maybe cut your sets in half. Maybe you're doing too much. Maybe you're overtraining. I don't believe in overtraining too much, as not as much as under eating, I think, and not getting enough rest.
Undersleeping.
Undersleeping, yeah. So it all encompasses each other.
Look, if I could just, really address the question, think about it now. First of all, genetics play a role. That's number one. Okay, let's take a look at two Mr. Olympias, train totally different. Dorian, low volume, heavy intensity. And Jay Cutler, a lot of volume. And they both look great, and they both were Mr. Olympias more than once, right?
Yeah. And then you can go with back in the day with Lee Haney, stimulate, don't annihilate.
Yep.
And that guy probably could have lifted a lot heavier than he was training, and he knew what weights to use.
But the one thing people need to realize is that they don't have their genetics, and that's a huge factor. I'm not I'm going to train like Dorian. Well, you're not Dorian. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
And
Scott,
also,
go ahead, Vin.
good, Sean.
So Vince, Scott, someone's asking, anything staple supplements did you recommend? The creatines, the proteins, multivitamins, or is that just really ancillary?
No, it's not.
Mhm.
Okay.
Again, budget is has a lot to do with it. A good multivitamin, a good essential fatty acid. Those are the two most important to me. Again, there are other things that I like to add, but again, everybody's budget's going to be different. I think vitamin D is everybody's vitamin D deficient, and then that helps immunity. That also affects hormones.
Yep.
Creatine is a great supplement, for training, but it all relates to budget.
What was that last one you said?
Creatine.
Creatine.
Now there's some more studies with health brain benefits too with creatine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Scott and I we were talking this week, and he was telling me that he never uses a stim for a pre-workout, and due to our age, was something to be concerned about. So a lot of guys should take that in consideration as they're approaching 50 to watch what kind of like pre-workout you're using. And what was it? Unbroken?
Unbound, the company, which is NutriBio's upgraded brand. It's Unbent is the
Unbent.
Yeah, it's
Unbent.
a pump.
I actually used it today for the first time.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I had a pretty good pump from it. I was like a little nervous, so I'm so used to taking a pre-workout, and being alert. And so let me try this, and I'm gonna not use anything with it. I just use it by itself, and I had a good workout. I mean, a really good workout today. So I was thank you for the recommendation.
Good. Let me just address that. When you train, you raise your blood pressure. That's what and it happens on its own. Now you're adding a stimulant, which is going to elevate that blood pressure even more artificially. Okay. And I used to think, why people don't just drop in the gym? Well, elevated blood pressure is bad, but what usually happens at night? People, will have a stroke usually during the night. Why? Because that's when the blood pressure is going to be the lowest, and the body hates dramatic changes. So the delta between that high blood pressure and the low is dramatic. The pendulum swinging one end to the other that really has the effect. Not that high blood pressure is good, but it's the swings that really the body doesn't like dramatic changes.
Yeah. Guys, as we wind down, one thing we haven't touched on is posing. I mean, at what point do we start? How often? How long? What do you guys recommend?
All year.
Yeah.
All year long, you should be practicing posing. In between sets, hitting some poses. But getting to the nuts and bolts of posing routines and practicing your mandatories, I think that should start around 20 weeks out from a contest. And a lot of people today try to mimic a lot of the old school classic poses, and they're not complementing their physiques by doing that.
Yeah.
And like for me, I was pretty good at doing a lot of the Frank Zane, Lee Labrada style poses, Bob Parris style poses, but then there were poses that those guys did, like on their, like a lunge pose sideways with one hand over their head, and I didn't look good in it. Did I do it? No, because it didn't look good on me. So people have to pick poses that complement their physique. There's a lot of guys who are boxy with no symmetry, trying to do classic poses because they're in the classic division. And they have to remember they're only in the classic division because it's a height and weight category, and they happen to just fit into it. They don't necessarily have a classic physique. So you don't need to do a classic style posing routine or poses. I mean, I know they call for one pose, your favorite classic pose, but damn, try to find a pose that is close to best suited you individually, not the pose you like the most. And also posing, for me, I think, which adds and Scott does this too, it gets us grainy and hard when we're posing 3-5 minutes at a time for each pose. And that takes a long time to do and a lot of energy. When you're standing,
do rounds of posing. After I train, rounds of posing in the posing room.
Yeah. I like to do it when I get home and just do it when I'm cold. And it's like almost becomes another workout. And that contraction gets you even harder. It adds to your diet. It does. And people don't believe that.
It does.
It does.
Yeah, and I think people, what they do is they go to YouTube and say, "Oh, I like Lee Priest, I like this person, that person," and they try to mimic their routine. And like you said, some might work, and some might not work.
And some people cannot do a vacuum, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's not like you're not like there's no negative. If you have if you're in shape, let's forget shape. If you're in shape, in condition, and I'm talking about forget if you're an X-frame, and I don't know if everybody knows what an X-frame is. Shoulders are here, waist, and then quads. Or if you're blocky, but if you're in condition, do what works for you. Don't go outside of the box and trying to be something you're not.
Yep. At what
If
point?
I could just add to that though, what you should be doing, until you start getting in shape, is practicing the mandatories, not of the ancillary stuff. And you'll notice as you get in better shape, those mandatories are going to look better and better on you. And some of those ancillary poses don't look good until you're actually in really good condition.
So someone posted about the Arnold this past weekend where they were impressed. The guys were in a side chest, and it was the first call out. And then they said, "Oh, look how impressive these guys are, that they're stuck in the pose, and then they're doing other poses in between to regroup." Now, I look at that differently, because back in the day, you would never have seen Lee Labrada, Barry DeMay, Lee Haney break a pose. And the negative of this is that they're saying they were stuck in a pose. They weren't stuck in the pose. The judges made them stay in that pose. If you're not conditioned to stay in the pose and you got to break it to do another pose, you didn't practice your posing that long. I could be wrong, but that's the way I look at it. These guys are on stage doing a side chest. You should be locked in, loaded, and you should be conditioned to stay there for 10 minutes. I don't know. That's my opinion.
That's what rounds of posing is. When you do rounds, you do your quarter turns and you hit a shot. And I used to have someone time me to hold that pose. And as time went on, we'd increase the amount of time.
That's exactly what I do when I train for a show. Yep.
As a coach, at what point do you truly pull the plug on a contestant? At the 3 weeks out, 2 weeks out, saying, "Listen, there's no way you can do 4 hours of cardio a day." Do you guys ever have to pull the plug on somebody?
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
You have the you're not ready, and they know they're not ready because they know they haven't followed the plan.
But at what point, Scott? 4 weeks, 3 weeks? When do you generally say that's it, guys?
It could be 6 weeks because I'm like, this person's not going to be ready in 6 weeks.
Okay.
Because you're working with them each week and they're not changing it, and they're like, "Oh, you know what? I wasn't 100% on the menu." I'm like, "Well, with 6 weeks out, I expect perfection."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you're working with a guy like Scott or myself, and you're making excuses, we see through it. We've been there. We've done it. We've been around people who've made excuses.
I've been working with people for decades, and people go, "I'm not cheating." I go, "Yes, you are." And they go, "How do you know?" I go, "Because your body's not changing." Like I said, the laws of human physiology apply to everyone. And I got blood work to actually back that up now, that there are no issues. That's why as you get closer, that's why the more blood work will be done more frequently. You follow me?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Guys, great conversation. Anything else we haven't addressed? I know we've been all over. Good content tonight.
No, I think we can keep going, but maybe we do this on another time down the road. There's so many other times to cover for contest prep.
Like to sum up, you know what? When you as a client, when you hire somebody, you got to make sure that you jive with them. Okay. and you have to give that person a chance to work with you, a long period of time, because they will learn your body over time. You've got to give them that opportunity, and you need to be honest with them on a weekly basis, and not bullshit them, because they're going to figure it out.
Absolutely. One of the things I've learned to say to somebody, and it's a shocker to them, is when I say, you're uncoachable. It's like the biggest, like, what are you talking about? I'm a good person. Like, it's not about you being a good person. You're just uncoachable. I tell you to do A, B, and C. They're like, yeah, but I did more. I'm like, that's not following the program. Now you're burnt out. Now you're tired. I got to play catch up with you. That's even worse than you cheating on a diet. So it doesn't matter what aspect you're coming at it. If you're not following a program, or if you're doing, if Scott or I are telling you to do 35 minutes of cardio once a day, and you're doing 35 minutes of cardio twice a day, and you're disappearing, and now we have to play guessing games, that's a lot of work. Going back to what I was saying earlier, it's really simple. Just follow the program. Don't do more. Don't do less. Just do what we tell you to do, because that's going to guide you into getting in good shape.
I when I talk about cardio, he mentioned it. I'm going to give someone the least amount of specific work to create a change, and I'm only going to change that when the body hits a plateau. And I say to people when I work, I will get you anywhere you want to go. You just need to follow the plan, and when I change it, you change along with me.
It's really simple.
Yeah.
Keep it simple, stupid.
I manipulate the variables. You implement the changes.
There you go. Perfect.
But
I think that's
more, Scott. I got to do more. That's right here. No.
I think that's a good note to end on, Scott. But as always, tell us about the clinic that you're working with again, Scott. Let everybody know the great work you're doing with.
It's a company called Integrated Wellness, and we take the word integrated, which is taking separate parts and bringing them together under one roof.
Okay.
It's the most comprehensive medical program that focuses on altering body composition, anti-aging, longevity, and wellness. And we bring all these factors together. We have a functional medicine arm. We have a cardiologist on staff. We do hormone replacement. So and use of peptides. Okay. We have a meal prep and delivery service for people who can't cook. We have a company that we work with that does at-home blood testing called Pride that we partner with. Cool. We work with this company called Healthgevity that has, specializes in anti-aging and longevity supplements.
Are you guys just based in Florida, or are you expanding outside of Florida?
With telemedicine. We're but we have an office in New York.
Okay. All right, cool. All right.
I'm sorry?
What's the website?
IWNYC.com.
Perfect. And Scott, where can people learn about you, your website, your Instagram handle, things along those lines?
It's ScottyTheBodyMechanic.com.
Perfect. And Vinnie, it's always good seeing you, my friend.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Scott, so much. It's always a pleasure.
And for those that are just joining us for the very first night, make sure you go into the archives. We've got great interviews with Lee Priest, Rich Kaspari, Chris Dim last week. As always, thank you so much. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment. Have a great rest of the week.
Thank you, guys. Good night.
Thanks.